Hey guys, it's Alec Torelli, and welcome to Conscious Poker. In this video, I'm going to answer your most commonly asked questions about poker from my experience with playing over the past 20 years. Really excited to share these tips with you, but if you're new here, be sure to subscribe. More awesome content is on this channel. We have 500 videos to help you on all poker subjects. And for now, let's dive straight into it. Let's go. All right, guys, as promised on Twitter, I'm going to be answering some of your questions in rapid fire format here as part of Ask Alec, our Q&A. So the first question comes from Old Man Wooks on Twitter. He says, what does it feel like losing more money in a night than some people make in an entire year? So losing money always sucks. And the pain of losing, I believe, is always greater than the joy of winning. So there's this negative asymmetry where your emotions are greater when you lose than they are joyful when you win. And so that's always a challenge. And that, of course, is exacerbated the bigger you play. I think there's a little bit of a misconception when people think, oh, if I was playing bigger and I had bigger bankroll, it would be easier to stomach the losses because I'd have more money. I wouldn't care as much. I find that the opposite is true. The bigger you play, the more money you play for, the more painful it is to lose because the absolute value of that money is greater. It could do more things in the real world. And so I think there's a couple things here. One is you want to compartmentalize your poker bankroll from your life bankroll. And when you keep those two things separate, I think it's easier to handle because in my poker life, I kind of view the money as flowing like a river. It's never, fixed in one place. And so I don't get too excited about the wins. I don't get too upset about the losses, but it's all managed properly within the confines of my poker bankroll. And then it's only when I move things over to my life roll that I consider that money outside of poker and locked and safe. Then I have a lot more reverence and, not reverence necessarily, but I have a lot more like control over and stability with the money in my life roll because it's outside of poker. It's in the real world. It's like more stable. And so I think that's really important. And then I think the other side of the coin is that it's like tolerance, right? If you have caffeine or alcohol, if you have your first cup of coffee, your first glass of wine, you're feeling it, right? If you never drink or never have any sort of stimulants, you're feeling it. But the more you absorb a substance, the more tolerance you have for that substance. So the first time you play big or the first time you take a shot, no matter what stakes you're playing, it feels dramatic. But as you play that game more and more often, you get more and more comfortable. And of course, you have the bankroll to support that. It gets easier to tolerate those things. Now, that doesn't mean it gets easy. It's always a challenge, especially, the bigger you play, the more you win and lose. It's like, it's still hard to compartmentalize. And that's one of the challenges, I think, of being a poker player. But that's part of the edge. It's part of the skill. It's part of the ability to grow as a person and have that emotional maturity to be able to handle some of the challenges that come with the game. So hope that helps. Next question. Young Yin asks, what is the best way to get back into poker after a 2-month vacation? This is a great one, and I often find myself taking time away from poker as well. So this is something that I have experimented with a lot throughout my career. And I think it's important to come back with a lot of humility and understand that it's just like training in the gym, right? If you run every day, you're going to be in great shape. If you don't run for 2 months, you're not going to be your best version of yourself. So start slow. Maybe what you'll do is, let's say you're a 2-5 player. Instead of hopping back into the 2-5 game and buying in super deep, you could hop back into 1-3 and buy in 100 big blinds and get used to the flow of poker, and then wait until you feel like you've reached your peak and you're in flow and you're at your best, and then dive back in to the bigger games and buy in deeper or whatever it is. I also think studying helps a lot, of course, whether it's taking a course, watching YouTube videos, or studying, using solvers, working with a coach, talking with friends, just getting your mind back on poker, I feel like also really helps as well. And just understand that it is a little bit like training and it takes time for you to get back in flow. All right, last question here from KB. He says, in sports, the best athletes and coaches are able to make adjustments after a game has started. What are some in-game poker adjustments that amateur players can make and have? So I think this is really important, something I talk with clients quite a bit about. And the first thing is you want to go in with a humble mindset and an open mindset and avoid making fixed labels and judging a situation immediately and sticking to that. So what I mean by that is sometimes people can sit down at a table, they watch someone play a hand and they just say, oh, that guy's a fish. And so once they've labeled someone in a certain way, it sort of blinds them from updating their strategy in real time. And it also doesn't touch the deeper elements of what it is about that person. So they say, oh, that player's a fish, but why? Are they a calling station? Do they limp call too often? Or are they hyper aggressive and they're raising too often and they're just bluffing too often? So what type of bad player are they, rather than just labeling them? And so I think it's really important to go into the session perhaps with a game plan, but not too strict of one, because it's not like football where, the Super Bowl, you know which team you're playing, you know what their strengths and weaknesses are, you know their betting, you know their patterns, you can watch the tape of those players. That's true for me on the Hustler when I play, in these live stream games. I could study all my opponents. But for most people out there going back to the 2-5-5-10 game at their local casino, you can't observe all the whole cards of who, you don't know who you're going to be playing against. So you can't go in with too rigid of a game plan. You have to go in with an open mind and be understanding of, hey, I'm going to play this way if this big stack is to my left, or I'm going to play differently if the guy to my right wins a lot of chips, or if this guy starts tilting, I'm going to adjust my strategy. So the first thing you want to do is always be updating your strategy in real time. So that means every single hand you are potentially slightly tweaking your strategy, maybe 1%, based on the new information you have available. And that means you have to be more present. You have to not be on your phone. You have to practice staying in flow. You have to practice being able to concentrate mentally for 5, 6, 8, 10 hours at a time. You have to be in great shape physically. You have to have a great diet. You have to meditate. You have to be able to be present to give yourself that opportunity. So the first step is always being aware of what's happening and updating your strategy in real time. And then the second thing is making independent reads on each individual player. So it's not enough to just say, oh, I'm going to play tight and aggressive. You might play one way against one player and another way completely against a different player. And this is why sometimes when people say, oh, I saw this guy make this play, therefore he's going to make that play against me, it's like a level one sort of logic, right? I mean, just because he played a hand a certain way or she played a hand a certain way against one type of opponent doesn't mean they're going to do the same thing against a different type of opponent, because better players have independent strategies against each type of player. So for example, even in the games I play here at Hustler, I have certain players that I'm going to be more aggressive against and certain players I'm going to be less aggressive against. Certain players are going to be flatting more raises. Certain players are going to be trapping more often. Certain players are going to be value betting bigger with certain types of hands, or bluffing more often or bluffing less. My frequencies are going to be different, and my hand selection and my playing style is going to be different against every type of player. And that's just the truth. I'm not going to tell you which player is going to be what, obviously, but it's a unique strategy against each opponent, and I think that's going to help you on your game. Thank you so much, guys. Let me know which question was your favorite. Of course, if you have more questions, I'll be happy to answer them in future videos. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Alec Torelli, where I put out daily tips and things I'm thinking about in the world of poker, investing, life, and elsewhere. And subscribe to this channel. More awesome content's coming. Like this video if it helped you, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.